Rose Conway-Walsh.
Minister, our fishing industry, as you're well aware, makes a huge contribution to the economic and social fabric of many small communities located around our coastline, not least my own county of Mayo and the coastal area there. But the entire fishing industry feels let down and abandoned. They tell me that every day of the week. They told me today, they told me yesterday, they told me last week. Sinn Féin fully recognise the importance of cooperation at an international level, predominantly through the EU for the sustainable management of fish stocks. That said, the current common fisheries policy is a terrible deal for Ireland and always has been. This has been the result of a litany of historical failures for successive governments to secure a fair deal for our fishing sector. This has been compounded by the disaster of the recent Brexit trade and cooperation agreement, as you know. The agreement saw 199 million worth of EU-wide quotas transferred back to Britain. Around 43 million, essentially a quarter of the total, came at the expense of the fishing sector in this state. The sector here lost 15% of our total quota. The European Commission is in the process of conducting the review, as was discussed, of the Common Fisheries Policy, and that will be presented to the European Council and Parliament at the end of next year. It's vitally important that we have substantial reform. But how can the sector trust the government, given the track record? And that's what they're asking me. I know there's a meeting arranged of government tomorrow where they don't want any other outside voices in it tomorrow morning, which I think is very disappointing as well, because I think we need to be working together. We need to sort this out for the sake of our coastal communities. That's what people expect from us. That's what the fishermen along our coast, and certainly along the coast of Mayo, expect from us. The Seafood Taskforce was established to make recommendations to the Minister on measures to mitigate the impacts of fish quota shares reductions arising from the Trade and Cooperation Agreement on the fishing industry. The report talks about the longer-term fleet restructuring measures through the voluntary permanent cessation schemes, including the inshore sectors. And I want to balance recognising how important the fishing industry is while also underdeveloped by international standards. The fishing fleet operating in Mayo is predominantly the inshore fleet. And while short-term supports for voluntary cessation may be necessary, the idea that the long-term solution is to downsize this sector in Mayo is completely unacceptable. The fishing industry provides an essential source of income for many people in communities along the coast of Mayo, and fishing is one of the few jobs that has sustained communities throughout the tough times. When a state reduces its fleet, it's in a retrograde step. This is the third time we've introduced decommissioning. Fishermen want to fish. They don't want to tie up schemes or decommissioning. They want quota to be allowed and to be allowed to do the job that they love. They feel totally abandoned and let down by successive Irish governments, and they want a fairer distribution. Minister, we need to implement the recommendations of the final report for the very survival of the fishing communities and the coastal communities. But this cannot be the end of it. Unless there's a fairer and more balanced and a viable approach, our communities are going to be decimated. We need a fairer quota system, not only the overall quota system, but how it's distributed as well. And we need to know in places like Erris, where we don't have processing plants, and I do think that that's a failure of government as well, how that money is going to be spent. Can it be spent on piers and infrastructure and other things? In Article 16, it's not been done properly here in Ireland, where how quota is divided out. We have 1,500 vessels, only have less than 50 with mackerel entitlements. One medium vessel has an allocation equal to 1,000 smaller vessels. That isn't right. The unfair distribution of the quota, even the quota as it is, has to be re-looked at. So I hope, Minister, that you're going to take from today what's needed for the coastal communities, because the coastal communities and the fishermen in County Mayo feel absolutely abandoned by this government, and they're not going to be put off with meetings where there is no opposition or where the hard questions aren't asked. We need to all work together. We have a responsibility. You have a responsibility in government, and we and our own spokesperson, Pádraig McLaughlin, has done Trojan work on this. We want to work with you. We want to get it right. We want to get it right, not just for now, but for 10 years' time, 20 years' time, and into generations.